Hi friends, Miss Rosenfield here with a little background to the Odyssey. Today I'm going to tell you a very shortened version of the Iliad, which is sort of the prequel to the Odyssey, and you'll take a few notes. So that's our goal, is to become familiar with all the background information we need to learn about the Odyssey. If you would please grab a blank piece of paper, drawing is probably going to be your easiest bet. And I'll show you my drawn notes as we go. Okay, so the story of the Odyssey starts way back before the Odyssey itself. There is a king and queen of Troy, which is one of the city-states in Greece. There's lots of kingdoms that are their own nations, and they are ruled by their own kings and queens, but they're all part of what we would consider to be Greece today. And the king and queen of Troy are called Hecuba and Priam, and they have lots of kids, and they're all really, really good looking. So when they have about 100 kids, the queen gets pregnant again, and there is a prophecy that says that their newborn son will be the downfall of Troy. He'll bring down the whole city. So in order to save Troy, they have to kill their new baby. So the king's like, yep, that sounds great. Let's kill the baby. And the queen is not so sure. So when she gives birth to the new baby, whose name is Paris, she sends a shepherd to take the baby and leave him on a mountain. For the ancient Greeks, this is kind of like a gray area. If she kills him herself, then she's at fault. But if she leaves the baby on a mountain and the gods let him die, then it's the gods' fault. So the shepherd takes the baby, puts him on the mountain, baby Paris, and leaves him there. That night, a bear, probably a magical bear, takes care of him. And over the night, the shepherd feels bad. He can't sleep. He wants to check on the baby. So he comes back in the morning and sees that the baby is still alive. And so he knows that the baby was meant to live. Because he thinks that the god meant the baby to live, he takes him home, raises him in his normal life as a shepherd, and Paris grows into an adult or young adult, and he is very handsome, like the rest of his brothers and sisters, who he doesn't know. So for your notes, would you please draw the family tree of the royal family of Troy? It should look like this. So you have King Priam and Queen Hecuba. They're married. Hector is their firstborn son, and he is well-loved by everyone. He's smart. He's handsome. He's the best. Cassandra is one of their daughters, and she has the gift and curse of being able to see into the future. But although she can see into the future, nobody listens to her ever. Nobody believes her. They're just like, okay, Cassandra, get with your stories. But it's a gift and a curse. The king and queen have about 100 other kids, not an exaggeration, and their latest baby obviously is Paris, the one that they send off and don't raise themselves. So Paris at this point doesn't know that he's a prince or that he's related to the king and queen. Pause the video here to finish these notes if you don't have this yet. Okay, so once Paris is grown, he likes to raise bulls, and he's really good at it. So his bulls are the best. They're strong and beautiful and things that you would want a bull to be. And he decides that he wants to hold a contest. He's tired of always winning these contests. Think of it like the fair, where his bull is always the best. So he offers a challenge. Other people bring their bulls, and whoever is the winner and has the best bull gets this golden crown. So this is a thing that's happening in the mortal world, but if you know anything about the Greek gods, you know that they love to watch humans and then get involved in mortal issues. So the god of war, Ares, because he has a big ego, like all the gods, decides that he wants to win the contest. So he transforms himself into a bull. This is something the gods and goddesses can do, is turn into animals. And he enters himself into the contest. While he is judging, Paris sees that one of the bulls is like ridiculously beautiful and strong and things like that. And he can tell that it's a god. But if the gods are ever in your life, the best thing to do is to make them happy. You should never, ever make a god mad. So Paris is like, that bull is the winner, and he gives the crown to Ares, and Ares is very pleased, and all the gods are pleased with Paris for agreeing that Ares is the best and giving him the crown. So your notes should look like this. You can draw a bull or a crown or both. I do not pretend that my drawings are beautiful, but hopefully you can tell it's a bull with a crown on. So that's Ares. Pause the video here so you can draw this. While this is happening, up on Mount Olympus, where the Greek gods live, Zeus is throwing a wedding for a sea nymph, and he invites everybody on Mount Olympus except for the goddess Eris, and she's the goddess of discord, which means like chaos and misery. So understandably, she's kind of a party pooper. They don't want misery and chaos at their party, so he doesn't invite her. But when she finds out that this wedding is going on and she hasn't been invited, she is very upset. So she storms into the wedding and throws a golden apple into the crowd. The apple is inscribed with the word Callisti, which means to the fairest. And in this case, often when we're talking about older texts, fair means beautiful. So it's like the apple says, to the most beautiful. And she throws it into the crowd and walks away because she just wants to cause problems. She doesn't actually want to be at the party. So your notes should add the apple of discord, which here is mine. Pause this so you can draw it. So all the gods and goddesses jump on the apple. They all want to be the most beautiful, but 3 end up with a hand on it, and they can't fight one another off. The 3 are Aphrodite, who's the goddess of beauty, Athena, who's the goddess of wisdom and war, and Hera, who's the goddess of women and marriage. She's also Zeus's wife. They all want Zeus to decide because they can't fight it out themselves. And Zeus is like, not about to make that decision. He certainly doesn't want to make his wife mad, but the other 2 are goddesses and he doesn't want to make them mad either by choosing just one. So Zeus remembers that Paris had chosen Ares in that contest about the bulls. And so he says, you know what? Paris, who's a human, is a really good judge. We all saw what a good judge he was when he judged the contest that Ares entered. Why don't we have Paris decide? So here's what your notes should look like. Add Aphrodite, Athena, and Hera to the apple, please. These are the goddesses who are fighting over it. You can pause the video here to add this to your notes. Okay, so when they bring Paris up to Mount Olympus, they tell him he's going to judge this contest, and he sees that it's a dicey situation. Much like Zeus, he doesn't want to make any of the goddesses mad, but for him, it's a lot higher stakes because he's immortal. They could just kill him if they're mad at him. So he decides that he should be strategic about it. And he says, okay, I'll decide, but first you have to let me stay here for a little bit and ponder over my choices. So Zeus says, sure, no problem, puts him up in a nice room in Mount Olympus, and Paris sits there and waits. Before long, knock, 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 Hera is at his door, and she says, listen, choose me. I will make you the most powerful man on earth. I'll make you the king of Europe and Asia. And Paris says, yeah, great deal. I'll choose you. I'll announce it tomorrow. Athena comes a little bit later once Hera's left, knock, knock, knock on the door. And she says, listen, choose me. I will give you wisdom and powers in battle. And Paris is like, yeah, that's a better deal. Okay, I'll choose you. Be quiet about it now. I'll announce it tomorrow. And Athena goes off. Finally, Aphrodite comes knocking on his door, knock, 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 and she says, I will give you the most beautiful woman in the world if you choose me, who at this time is Helen of Sparta. She's already married to a man named King Menelaus, but that's not really important to Paris because he wanted to marry her a while ago, and Aphrodite doesn't matter to her at all because she's a goddess. She doesn't care about mortal affairs. So she says, I'll give you Helen, the most beautiful woman in the world. And Paris is very interested in this offer. Now, a little bit about Helen. She is also human, like Paris. Before she was married, she had many, many suitors. And suitors are people who would like to marry you. So her father, Tyndareus, was pretty smart, and he realized that if there are 100 men who want to marry Helen and he picks one of them, he's going to have 99 men who are mad at him, not unlike the goddesses in the apple. So he realizes that the other suitors who don't get picked are going to be really dangerous once Helen doesn't become their wives. So he makes them swear a pact that before he chooses her husband, the others will swear that if it's not them who gets chosen, they will defend whoever does get chosen if anything ever goes wrong. So he says, listen, if you want to be considered to be my daughter's husband, sign this pact. And it says, if I don't choose you, you have to come to her husband's defense if anyone ever steals her away. So all the suitors are like, yep, thinking it's going to be them to get chosen. They sign the pact. Paris was one of the suitors at the time. So was Odysseus, who is the king of Ithaca. We'll have more on him later. When Helen's husband becomes King Menelaus, that's who her father chooses to marry her, then all the other suitors, including Paris, including Odysseus, are sworn to protect them and make sure that she stays safely his wife. Okay, so for your notes, draw Helen. Don't laugh at my drawing or do it privately. It's fine. This is my Helen. She's so pretty. It's hard to draw people. Okay, pause your video here so you can draw some form of Helen. A stick figure is totally fine. So, when Aphrodite offers Helen to Paris, he says, yep, that's the money offer. I will take that. He gives the apple of discord to Aphrodite, and Aphrodite gives him Helen. She kidnaps Helen and brings her and Paris back to Troy. This means that he has broken the pact with the other suitors. So Helen's been kidnapped, and now all the other suitors who wanted to marry her at some point but didn't get chosen are required to come to her defense and bring her back to her rightful husband. So King Menelaus, her rightful husband, calls on all the other suitors to honor the pact and to come fight for him and bring Helen back from Troy. Sometime in this area, we find out through Paris that he is actually a prince, and he goes to live in the palace with his royal brothers and sisters. So here is what I want you to add to your notes. Please circle Aphrodite's name. She's the one who gets chosen to have the apple of discord. Then draw a little heart, Helen and Paris forever. She kidnaps Helen, brings her to Paris, and they go to Troy, where Paris is from. And this leads to the war, because all the suitors have to come to Menelaus's defense and bring Helen back from Troy. So here's what your notes should look like. Circle Aphrodite's name. She offers Helen. I drew a little arrow to Helen to show that. And then draw an arrow from Helen to the heart. So Helen and Paris are together now. It's disputed whether or not she wants to be with Paris, because this is ancient literature. We don't get a lot of the woman's perspective, which is unfortunate. And then that leads to the Trojan War. So the war is all the suitors and their armies, because they were often royals themselves, trying to get Helen back to her husband. Pause here so you can draw this. So remember that I said one of the suitors was King Odysseus. When he doesn't get chosen to be Helen's husband, it's not that big of a deal to him. He doesn't stay bitter about it like Paris does. And he marries another woman named Penelope because she's smart and beautiful, and Odysseus values intelligence. When the Trojan War starts, they have a newborn son whose name is Telemachus. So King Menelaus calls on all the suitors to come help him, and he sends his messenger, Palamedes, to go get Odysseus and bring him to the Trojan War. Odysseus knows that Palamedes is coming, and he doesn't want to go to the war because he doesn't really care about Helen and Menelaus. He has his wife, he has his son, he has his kingdom. He doesn't need to be involved in this war that has nothing to do with him. So he decides, because he's really clever, that he's going to act crazy. He thinks that if he's crazy, Palamedes won't send him to war, because why would you want a crazy person as a soldier? So when Palamedes shows up, he acts all crazy, pulls his hair out and stuff, and plows his fields with salt, which is a crazy thing to do if you know anything about growing things from the earth, because salt will make soil infertile, so you can't grow anything in salty soil. But Palamedes is also very smart. And so he says, well, if Odysseus is really crazy, then he'll probably have no problem accidentally killing his son. What do family ties matter to a crazy person? So he takes baby Telemachus and throws him in front of Odysseus's plow. Odysseus, obviously being sane, loves his son and doesn't want to kill him, so he stops the plow, and Telemedes is like, gotcha, you are not crazy at all, you gotta go to war, bud. So Odysseus has to go to war. For your notes, please draw Odysseus's family tree. It should look like this. So you have King Odysseus, he's from Ithaca, married to Queen Penelope, and their son is named Telemachus. Telemachus has a part in the Odyssey as well. Pause here so you can draw this. So Odysseus goes to Troy to fight in the Trojan War to get Helen back. The war is terrible and lasts for 10 years. The Iliad, which is sort of like a prequel to the Odyssey, narrates 4 days in the 10th year of the Trojan War, so as the war is ending. Troy used to be called Ilium, so the Iliad just means the story of Troy. Lots of people die. Achilles, you might have heard of him, is like the greatest fighter in Greek history. He dies. The story on him is that when he was born, his mother dipped him in the river Styx, which would make him impervious to injuries. He can't be injured. But she held him by the ankle and dipped him in the water. So just the spot that she held on his ankle didn't get touched by the water, which is what made him magically impervious to injury. So that tiny little spot on his ankle, which is what we call our Achilles tendon, was vulnerable. During the war, he tells this to a lady while they are holding hands, is the word we'll use for it. And she takes that information back to the Trojans and tells them Achilles' weak spot. And so they're able to shoot an arrow in his Achilles heel and kill him. That's an important story in Greek mythology. Hector, the firstborn son of Priam and Hecuba, gets killed. And that's what this famous painting on the slide is. They drag his body around the city for like 10 days or something crazy to humiliate the Trojans. And Paris dies too, womp womp. He doesn't even get to enjoy having Helen for very long. And during the war, Troy really does get destroyed. So the prophecy about Paris being the downfall of Troy becomes true, which usually happens when people try to avoid a prophecy. To end the Trojan War, Odysseus has an idea. He's like, I don't want to be in this war anymore. I'm tired of being here. I'm going to do something to finish this up. So he builds a wooden horse and fills it with Achaean soldiers. That's who's on the opposite side of the Trojans. There's the Trojans versus the Achaeans. What they do is they put the soldiers in the Trojan horse, they wheel it up to the gates of Troy as a gift, and then leave it there. And then they sail their ships around the bay out of sight of the Trojans. So it looks like they've brought a gift up to the gates of Troy and then have given up and sailed home. The Trojans wait during the day, kind of look at it, they're not sure. And then at night, they think, okay, well, this must really be a gift. It must be over. They bring the horse inside the gates and they get super drunk, which is the thing that is always happening in Greek mythology. Once they're all drunk and asleep, the soldiers exit the horse. They kill all the men in Troy, like every single one. They rape the women and children and keep them as slaves. And all this is fine with the gods. They don't really care so much about mortals killing one another. But then they destroy the temples for the gods. And now the gods are mad. And the worst thing you can do is make a god mad. So for your notes, would you please try to draw the Trojan horse? Again, stick figures are fine. And here I've highlighted Odysseus's name and drawn an arrow over to the Trojan horse because that was his idea. So pause the video here and add this to your notes, please. So the Trojan War is sort of the lead up to the Odyssey because the gods are so mad about their temples being destroyed that they don't let the Achaean soldiers get home. They kill most of them on their way home. Very few people who fought against the Trojans make it home safely. So after fighting in this war for 10 long years, Odysseus leaves Troy to go home to Ithaca, but he's made the gods mad, so it takes him another 10 years. And the story of him going home is the Odyssey. It's like the story of Odysseus. So here is what I would like you to add to your notes, please. The Trojan horse leads to the Odyssey, and Odysseus is at sea for another 10 years. So by the time the Odyssey ends, he is gone from home for 20 years. It's a long trip. Pause the video here to add this to your notes. And then when you are done, this is what your notes should look like. You should be able to make sense of it somewhat. It's okay if your drawings are better or worse than mine. And now you are ready to read the Odyssey.